Today, I want to tell you a story that sounds impossible until you realize it has happened before. This isn't just about crowns and wars. It's about collapse and recovery. It's about one leader choosing long-term structure over short-term panic. And it's about what rebuilding really looks like when everything is burning. Picture an empire that looks unstoppable on maps, but inside, it's cracking. The capital is tense, the treasury is thin, and the borders feel like they're always under pressure. Laws are messy, decisions are inconsistent, and people start losing trust. On paper, it's powerful, but in real life, it's fragile. Then the center explodes into chaos, and it happens fast. Streets fill with anger, and fear spreads faster than the fire. The government's authority gets challenged in public, in broad daylight. The city that should be the engine of stability becomes the source of instability. In moments like that, most leaders do one thing. They try to survive the week. They cut deals, blame rivals, and patch holes with temporary fixes. They focus on staying in power, not fixing what's broken, and a lot of them still lose anyway. But the emperor in today's birthday spotlight did something rarer. He rebuilt instead of just reacting. He didn't restore order and move on. He treated the crisis like a reset button. He looked at the ruins and saw a chance to redesign the entire machine. He rebuilt more than buildings. He rebuilt systems. More than armies, he rebuilt institutions. More than a city, he rebuilt an idea of empire. The goal wasn't to go back to normal. The goal was to become stronger than before. Because every empire has a center, and the center decides the future. It's where decisions get made, where money moves, where legitimacy lives. If the center collapses, everything else follows. So, if you want to rebuild anything, you start there. For the Eastern Roman Empire, that center was Constantinople, not just a capital, a symbol of order itself. When Constantinople felt stable, the empire could breathe. When it trembled, the whole state panicked. And early in this emperor's reign, it trembled violently. A massive uprising ripped through the city and almost broke it. The streets turned into a battlefield, and fires swallowed whole neighborhoods. Crowds weren't just angry, they were organized, and they were bold. For days, it looked like the empire might collapse from the inside. This was the kind of moment that ends dynasties. Because a riot isn't only disorder, it's a message. It says fear has faded. It says respect is slipping. It says power no longer feels untouchable. And if you mishandle that moment, you don't get a second chance. But instead of sinking into paranoia, the emperor used the crisis as a reset. He realized the old structure had already failed. He knew that restoring the old normal would rebuild the same weakness. So he rebuilt with intention, and he rebuilt at scale. He also understood something most people miss about power. Rebuilding an empire isn't only military. Conquest is hard, but governing is harder. Armies can win battles, but systems win decades. Without institutions, victory evaporates. So he targeted the machinery of the state, the rules, the procedures, the legal foundation. He pushed for a clear, organized body of law so governance could be predictable again. Because predictability is a kind of strength, especially after chaos. When laws are inconsistent, power becomes personal. It turns into connections, bribes, and faction loyalty. People stop trusting the system and start gaming it. Corruption becomes normal, and normal becomes decay. A codified system pushes back against that and forces order to return. But he didn't stop with paperwork and decrees. After the riots, the city needed more than control. It needed confidence. People needed to see renewal, not just hear promises. So he rebuilt the capital's identity in stone, in scale, and in spectacle. And the most famous symbol of that renewal still stuns people today. A monumental building rose where destruction had been. It wasn't only engineering, it was psychological power. It told the city, the future will be larger than the ruins. And it told enemies the empire still had breath. Because megaprojects aren't only architecture, they're messaging. They tell citizens and rivals the same thing. We are still here. We are still capable. We can still organize, still build, still command. And that message rebuilds legitimacy faster than any speech. Once the center stabilized, and once the rules held, he moved toward an old imperial dream. Restoring lost territory is always seductive. It promises glory, history, and a return to greatness. It also promises security because pushing borders outward can buy time, but it only works when the foundation is stable. His forces pushed into regions that once belonged to Rome. Not random conquest, strategic restoration. Key coastlines, important cities, economic routes, pressure points. It required logistics, leadership, and long-term planning, and it required the state to keep functioning under stress. Here's the lesson most people miss about rebuilding. It's not go bigger at all costs. It's restore capacity first, then expand. Expansion without institutions creates overreach. Overreach drains money, morale, and attention, and collapse becomes only a matter of time. Then came the kind of enemy you can't negotiate with. A plague. It spread across the wider world and emptied streets without warning. It hit at the worst possible moment, right in the middle of rebuilding and ambition, and it reminded everyone that even great plans can be ambushed by reality. That's what keeps this story honest. Rebuilding is never a straight line. Shocks arrive uninvited. Economic pressure, political backlash, disaster, personal setbacks. The question is not whether they come. The question is whether your system can absorb them and keep moving. And that is why this emperor's rebuild mattered. It wasn't only a victory, or a monument, or a campaign. It was the creation of structures that could keep functioning when conditions got worse. It was durability, not perfection. And durability is what separates empires from episodes. If you want the modern takeaway, it's surprisingly clear. Stabilize the center before you chase growth. Fix the rules, not just the outcomes, so problems stop repeating. Give people a visible symbol of renewal, so belief returns. And build resilience, because shocks are guaranteed. That is the legacy of the emperor born today. Not only what he conquered, but how he rebuilt. He faced chaos at the center and refused to accept decay as destiny. He rebuilt systems, symbols, and capacity, and he proved that even after disaster, an empire can rise again.